Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Career Shifts podcast, Journey to the Future. This podcast was never about just careers. For me, it was about change, the kind of change that sneaks up on you, the kind that cracks you open, the kind that calls you forward even when you are not ready. Over the past few episodes, we have spoken to leaders, learners, builders, believers, all wrestling in with the same question: how do I stay relevant? How do I stay true to who I am, even when everything around me is shifting? Today's conversation takes that question into a new domain, one that touches all of us, whether we notice it or not, and that is retail. Because retail isn't about shopping or just about shopping, it's about how we live, what we value, what we choose, and what are those choices that stay true to the world that we are creating. A lot has changed in the last few years. In the last few years, we also saw that COVID happened. AI has revolutionized things around us, and both of it has disrupted our habits. Quick commerce, as promised to everybody, 10 minutes delivery, has also taken the connection away. AI now tells brands who we are even before we have spoken. But in all this acceleration, the deeper question rises: what happens to meaning when everything becomes a transaction? Where does the trust go? Where does experience go? And most of all, where does humanity go? The guest tonight on the podcast is Jermina Menon, who has spent 2 decades living these questions every single day. From building India's biggest fashion retail stores, to mentoring digital first brands, to guiding how we reimagine spaces, stories, and the soul of shopping. Her journey is not just about marketing, it's about rhythm, relevance, and remembering that behind every product is a person, and behind every brand is a beating heart. In this episode, we will explore what is the future of retail. What does it tell us about future us? How consumerism is evolving from impulse to identity? Why CMOs must be culture shapers and not just campaign owners? And how Jermina has reinvented herself quietly, boldly, and in rhythm, what matters the most. So if you're building something and a business, even a life, and wondering how to stay human in a world that is full of algorithms and urgency, this one is for you. Jermina, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Gopal. Thanks for having me and sharing this part of my story. Never told that before.
Indeed. And I think that's very important because what I realized yesterday is that as much as we love about technology, it didn't work yesterday. And here we are again today, recording this episode on a different platform, which is going to be new for the audience that you would listen in and see this difference. And all the more reason for us to believe that future of world is going to be more human and less much of technology. So again, welcome to the show. Any thoughts that you would like to share to the audience that is listening in about the world that we are living in and anything that you think about today?
I think we've always heard change is constant. Now we have to say change is constant and rapid. So that's the correction we need to make because
Yes.
whether it's the world around us, whether it's a technology or, how fast everything is changing, I think it's not just constant, it's rapidly constant.
Absolutely. And I think if we really look at what has happened in the last couple of weeks and the extent of which the rapidness, I would say, has been, especially given the war situation that we all saw escalate and also now, hopefully, fingers crossed, de-escalate, um, speaks volumes about the fact that the change is rapid. And And I think we just need to embrace that. Um, Jermina, this podcast is very personal, very, not just to me now anymore, I guess. I guess it's more personal to a lot of people listening in every week, coming in and hearing the stories of reinvention as well as journeys to the future, which is a new theme that we are working on, that I'm working on. But it all started with a question that I had about how do I stay relevant? And also, what should people do to stay relevant? And I know your story has been all about rediscovering relevance all this while. Uh, and I can't move forward with this episode without really putting the spotlight on your career. So why don't you kind of take the next few minutes to walk the audience through your journey, who you are, what you do, and what do you do today?
Yeah. So one correction, you said 2 decades. I've been working since 3 decades. I
Oh, yes.
started working as a fresh graduate at 20 and a half years old. I remember at that time, I always knew from the time I was 17, 18, I wanted to be in advertising. And somehow in my final year of graduation, I kept wanting to see how do I enter advertising. And I found a method and I got into Lintas, which continues to remain a top three Indian agency. And unlike 20-year-olds of today, we didn't have that much knowledge or awareness. I was a BCom graduate who had also completed cost accounting along with her graduation. So Lint has promptly put me in the accounts department of debit credit and not accounts of account management, which I thought it should be. So I go there, I realize that, but you don't just walk out like maybe a Gen Z would do today. You say, okay, fine, if that's where I've landed and I'm in Lintas, let's figure it out. So I actually spent the first 3 years of my career as an accountant. And I think it's the best error that could have ever happened because we are so ingrained with our Indian education system, the fear of numbers, the fear of math, and I didn't have that fear. I had lost it in my graduation. I did have it in school. And here I was doing a lot of stuff, and I was interacting with a lot of IIM graduates, and they seemed to like really get worried when they saw the actual numbers, outstanding statements, billing statements, etc., etc. And it made me realize that it was actually a secret weapon to really be financially aware and not be scared of numbers and play around with them. So, in hindsight, the mistake turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. Uh, I love the numbers aspect, and marketing is a science, and art science is in the numbers. And I love doing the science as much as I love doing the art. But after 3 years, I said, "बहुत हो गया, मतलब accountant तो नहीं बनना है." And which is where I decided to ask for a shift to actual account management, which is what I had wanted to do in the first place. I was getting married then. I was shifting to Bangalore from Mumbai. And like only a 24-year-old without any knowledge of the world could do, I walked into the CFO's office and said, not only do I want to transfer, I also want to shift in department. They humored me and I landed in Lintas, Bangalore. I had an advertising career of about 15 years, 3 years as accounts, another 6 years with Lintas in account management. I shifted to FCB. Huge appreciation for the agency because today, if I have a strategic mindset, it's because the way that agency manages people and brands. And I say people and brands because it's a people-centric agency, and I learned a lot over there, and I owe a lot to the bosses and seniors I worked with over there. After 15 years of advertising, I felt there was some kind of a roadblock I was hitting because what had happened in advertising was while I had gone up the ladder, because the advertising industry changed as I grew in my career, I was doing less work on the brand than what I was doing in, say, the fifth year of my career versus the 15th year. So, advertising, if originally was the right hand arm of any brand manager, marketing manager. But then there was the split of creative and media duties. Then digital and websites started coming in the early 2000s. So you had website specialist agencies. And then events and activation started coming up as, professional places like malls or any other establishment started happening. And I felt I was going up the ladder, but I was doing a lot less on the brand. So the greed came in to say, I want to go back to doing every aspect of the brand, own the brand fully, not partially. So I also decided to upgrade my skills. I did an executive MBA from IIM Bangalore before I made the shift. And that again was a great decision because it really opened my eyes to the possibilities in the world. You know, when you are in advertising, you think the world runs around advertising because everybody's talking ads. But when you go out and you realize that it's a niche of a niche industry, that's when I realized, hey, there's so much more to do, and why am I stuck to one aspect? So, long story short, I finished my executive MBA, decided to take a 6 month break because I said I want to also figure out what I want to do after doing the MBA. You know, just don't want to jump. I knew I wanted to go on the other side, the client side, but which part and how I had kind of decided that. Uh, there were two choices at that time. This was, you know, almost 2006, 2007. It was either technology companies, Bangalore was always the tech capital, or it was the retail companies. Tech never interested me. Retail was always interesting. Plus, bulk of my advertising was in FMCG brands, so you know was familiar with some aspect, the stores, etc. So I decided to go into retail. I started with a what we would now call a startup, then shifted to launching a mall, then shifted to Reliance Retail, where I was there for 5 years, then again came back to the mall world. So I did all aspects, you know, in the retail area, brick and mortar. I think malls could be called the physical marketplaces. And I also made an error. I joined a not so great company at one point, and then COVID hit. So it became the perfect reason to quit the dead end job that I was in that time and start up on my own because I was very clear I was inching towards 50. Nobody was going to give a job. Jobs were being lost left, right, and center. And I said, okay, now let me kind of consult with brands because a lot of brands were offline then at the start of COVID with no immediate plans to go online. And a lot of them had to do that in like 2 weeks or a month to survive. And that's when I started working with brands which were largely offline, transitioning them online, growing them online, making them omni-channel over a period of time. And that's what I did. And now I'm with Bhartiya Urban back to, you know, a more kind of a corporate environment. And here I don't just look after the mall, I also look after our other assets, which is our tech company. We have a facilities management company. We have a food services company. We've just launched a GCC vertical. So yes, a very interesting aspect. I think for the first time, I'll probably also be doing a lot of B2B marketing, something I have not done. So yeah, life has its twists and turns and it all works out well in the end.
Incredible. I think, I mean, for any marketing student in the current day and age, if he were to listen to your journey, would be fascinated to hear and believe that all what they see under one roof today existed as separate entities, perhaps when you started your career, and how much the world has changed. And how you have been able to adapt to the whole journey so beautifully. And yeah, not to say that we don't make mistakes. I think we do. We all do. But still learning from it and figuring out what works the best for us, I think is the most important lesson that I can take from what your journey has been. You know, you've been in the retail for long enough to, you know, have seen the transition from being a playground to algorithms and, you know, quick commerce, you know, and we spoke about speed, we spoke about adaptability, and, you know, what's your view of, have we lost anything at all, or is it just that we have evolved to be better at what we are doing today?
I think technology and the profusion of data obviously has its place. You know, like I said, I'm a numbers person. I love seeing the data. But the point is, the data can only give you insights if you're willing to look at it and you're willing to address them. What is needed is seeing that insight and actually working on it and figuring out why it's happened. You know, which is where I believe that it's not just data, but also the human mind needs to work. I'll give you a very simple example. A brand I work for, we used to track the aggregator sales, Swiggy, Zomato sales, and there was a particular top selling product which was doing about 1,000 orders a month. And suddenly one month, it was October, if I remember right, it fell to about 450. And when I asked the sales guys, the store guys, the operations guys, what happened? Why is it dropped? And then everybody came back. It was hot chocolate. They said, "नहीं madam, अभी October गर्मी हो गई ना, सब hot chocolate नहीं पी रहे." I said, "ठीक है, तो तुम्हारा cold chocolate और cold coffee क्यों नहीं बढ़ा है?" And they drew a blank. And that's when I realized that there was something wrong. It just wasn't a seasonal thing. And I kind of prodded a bit more, spoke to production teams, just literally gunned one store sales guy saying, "Hey, tell me what's happening. Why are you not selling?" And then he happened to blurt out that, the portable cans which are set, the thermos flask, stock had run out. And which basically meant 15 days we didn't have those, and hence we had zero sales those 15 days, leading to almost 450 from 1,000. And then, of course, there was a lot of, heartache and bad blood around, and quickly stuff was ordered in. And what it meant was that the problem was shown, less sales, but the solution wasn't season. Solution was unavailability. And then it wasn't just about making it unavailable, but also ensuring that your MOQs are in place. Your alerts technology allows you to say you're running low, order now, etc., comes into place. And also telling the store teams and the sales teams that, guys, you all have to kind of make a noise about it, because this is lost sale, right? You could have sold again 1,000 or maybe even 1,200. Yeah. So this is a simple example of data pointed to the right problem, that something had gone wrong. But if one had not deeply investigated, one wouldn't have figured out what it was. And next month it would have again been that. And then November, I don't know what they would have said about why hot chocolate is not selling. But sales guys always find a way to, make it realistic and relevant. So that is one aspect. Second aspect is, are we really listening to the customer? This has been a perennial problem, that are people actually listening to customers? And I have seen that with Reliance. I was managing marketing for about 170 odd store across 30 geographies. And when I went for my retail store visits, it was very easy to see, interacting with teams of the high selling stores versus the low selling stores, that what was the difference, how they approach the customer, how they manage the customer. Customer has come back saying, I have a problem X, but they are so used to thinking it should be a problem Y, that they are solving Y, and the customer goes unhappy. Or they are worried, now if I have to admit there was a mistake, I'm going to, have faced the repercussions for it. So they were trying to handle the customer and convince the customer, and not necessarily address the issues. So you really had to kind of work on creating a system where they felt that, they could really solve the problem, to some extent empower them, or if not empower, at least ensure that they got the approvals for the, special cases, and also ensure that they saw the customer being important, and, customer first approach kind of a thing. So that becomes very important. And you see that today, later on we shifted to call centers. All of us grumbled how we don't want to talk to a bot and keep pressing numbers, right? People just read from screens. You're saying something is the problem. He's put a few keywords and he's reading what the screen says. Now, today it's a complete bot. So can you build a system where at one point the bot says, okay, I can't answer you. A person will get in touch with you, or I'll connect you to a person. And can the person actually listen to the problem rather than assume the problem from the few words they hear in the statement? So the human aspect continues to remain relevant. It's just about, do we see it as relevant, or do we just see it as a data point?
Wonderfully said. And I think it's very important for us to realize that future has to be with both in mind. And as much as technology can, enhance the outcomes, at the end of the day, we like to be spoken to by a person and not by a bot, or we like to be spoken to with empathy and not really scripts. So I hope this remains to be the integral focus for all of the organizations that are investing heavily into systems and data. You often say you are a 360-degree retailer. And when the consumer journey is so fragmented across screens, formats, moods, what's been your experience and what's your, what does that phrase mean to you today?
I think when I decided to call myself a 360-degree retailer, it was after 2 years of going solo and doing a lot of omni-channel marketing, for brands. And that's when I realized that I was able to see the difference between an offline customer, in-store customer, department store customer, mall customer, and on the other side, an online, a website customer, a food aggregator customer, a marketplace customer like Amazon. Uh, and the numbers always were different and the data was different, and your customer profile didn't change, but how they behaved on these channels changed. So I think that's where I thought 360 becomes very important. Probably another word could have been the omni-channel retailer. The idea was that it's the same customer, and customers today are omni-channel, and they do use different apps and different kind of physical and digital stores at different points in time. The point is, are you ready for that complete customer journey? Right? So if you are ready as a brand, or you say you want to be part of those segments of a customer journey, it becomes very important. So that's the reality. The customer is omni-channel. You cannot be unichannel.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. And I think customers evolve as well. And there is a question that I have about how customers are today different, but that's for later. And I think it's going to be interesting to explore that with you. But before we get into that, a question that I think I would ask any professional for that matter, not just someone from a retail background, is how COVID kind of flipped everything that we do, including the way we shop. Deeper than behavior, if I can call that, but also it kind of shifted a lot of things in the way we do things, speak to people, get things done. And, I think even from an experience standpoint, yeah, of course, I get things in 10 minutes today, which is perhaps one of the ideas that someone would have floated during COVID, and it is a reality today. But still, do I get everything the way I want or I used to do in the past? The answer to that is no, and things have changed. So what started mattering more or what started mattering less is going to be a very interesting part. But for you personally, what did that change to you? I mean, was it for good? Was it for bad? Any thoughts on that?
I think all of us now agree that COVID was a good thing to happen. We needed that huge shakeup individually, professionally, whether it is how we interact with family, how we interact with friends, how we interact with brands. Definitely, COVID was the best thing to have happened to e-commerce and any online business, because suddenly there was this customer who, was only available online or could only order online. I mean, we've heard about how senior citizens who otherwise didn't have the Amazon and Swiggy apps learned to install them, learned to use them, because even they needed to use such apps. So I think all in all, it ended up being a good change. What it also told brands was that, there was a reason why it was called the new normal also initially, that nothing was going to remain as people thought it should be. So, that was the main thing. And that really changed a lot. I think even as individuals, I wasn't as heavy a online shopper then, but I definitely became a much heavier online shopper. I love my bazaars. I love my commercial streets. I love my malls. But I think post-COVID, the choice that is available, which is not physical, has made it difficult even for somebody like me to be 100% offline shopper.
Yeah, sure. And I would agree, because at the end of the day, I was just quoting this example to you yesterday when I was talking as well about the fact that today a person sitting in Ahmedabad or Jaipur or even Arunachal Pradesh for that matter, or can create avenues for himself to sell his products across not only India, but even otherwise globally, which perhaps was unheard of, unthinkable of 10 years ago. So thanks to technology that has enabled this change. But fundamentally, has anything become better in the way we sell, in the way we do customer service because of COVID?
No, I think digitization has probably taken a bit of customer service away.
Mm,
And I think the screen addiction is very visible when you go to any physical retail store. You
mm,
know, uh, even the sales staff, instead of standing at the entrance and smiling at customers, are sitting in one corner with their neck hunched, and they are looking at a mobile rather than a store. So you won't even know if somebody came in, was not attended to, and went out,
mm,
right? Uh, all of us want to be welcomed. All of us want to feel that that's a place where you could go and shop, etc. So you can really see these changes, even in high streets, even in mall stores, etc. And to some extent, customer service has become difficult, while D2C brands are bending backwards. So when there are complaints, they are really kind of ensuring that the customer is happy, a refund is given, replacements are given. All of that aspect has definitely improved. I would also say misused by customers, because I have quite often dealt with such customers, and you realize that there is a set of customers and there will always be those sets of customers. You can't run away from them. But I do feel the human aspect kind of got a bit reduced, and it became too much about the variety and the choice and the pricing and the discounting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the price that we pay for automation. That's the price we pay for screens. That's the price that we pay for, AI. And let's talk about AI for a moment. I think it's been last 2 years, 3 years that we've seen things evolve for good. It also has allowed us with a lot of data points to decide on things. I was just reading or listening to a news article today that the war that we had, which India had a great fair deal of success. A lot of our approaches were heavily driven by AI. So the AI does have a powerful role to play even in wars today, which is a very interesting thing. But in your view, if you were to really look at brands, retail, um, what is that one aspect of uh, both that technology or automation should never touch?
That's a bit difficult, because today technology is kind of omnipresent.
Mm,
But the one area could definitely be, I think, product development,
mm,
where you need to be very customer anchored and customer centered, and look at what the customer wants and build accordingly. And that is something where you need to apply your mind. You can't tell AI customers are, I did this survey, this is the result. Now tell me what product to build. Because AI will only suggest you something that has been done. It doesn't have the ability to think forward. So product development, idea development has to be human. It can't be left to AI, because AI is trained on the past. It's not trained for the future.
wow, that's a very interesting perspective. Um, and I think that's where we really need to push. And I think I was also listening to someone from a media domain who shared a similar perspective about the fact that AI is more like a big library. Of course, that was countered by another guest that I had on the podcast who said it's also generative today, which kind of is much more faster, smarter, bigger, and all of that. Having said that, it's going to be very interesting to see how this evolves. The creative part of the work that we do is interestingly evolving, and we all need to kind of figure out a way to see how to remain relevant in through that phase as well. Um, Moving on, I think I wanted to ask this question even earlier, but just again bringing back the generational topic to the conversation. Today, a consumer is a Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, And it's kind of, very interesting to see shopping behaviors being tracked, evolved, shopping behaviors being modeled to kind of come up with new products, etc. Firstly, just from your perspective, is shopping behavior different across generations? Number one. Number two, do you see this being factored into a lot more detail when it comes to malls or experience centers, looking at designing things differently just for a particular generation? What are your thoughts on that?
So to answer your first question, yes, each generation does have a different approach to shopping. And I think it even changes when you go to Jeddah, when you go to a person in a metro versus a tier 2 or tier 3 city, and then a tier 5 city. So I think based on the customer profile, obviously the behavior will change, right? Gen Zs are digital first. So it takes a lot for them to come to a store. You really have to give them an experience. And
Yeah.
even then, when they come, they are more likely to either take a picture or scan it and save it in some app rather than buy it at the store, right?
Yeah.
Millennials were not digital first, but the first to use digital a lot in their lives at a much younger age. They are still kind of hybrid, more hybrid than a Gen Z. Gen Xers like me, of course, we are more hybrid and we don't have a preference. So sometimes convenience or pricing might play a role in where we are buying. Coming to the experience we offer in malls, malls were always one of those categories which you could always say was a 0 to 60 category. Typically in marketing, you would say a particular customer profile, ICP as we call it now, ideal customer profile. But the point is that they were always built for everybody and you had to have things for everyone. So for example, we do have seating because when the elderly come, they get tired and they need to walk. That was always there. Kids need to be engaged because shopping is not a kids activity. Unless until you are at a McDonald's or a Pizza Hut, or you're at a play zone like a time zone or a amoeba kind of a thing. It's not a place where kids go. So how do you keep the kids entertained? What kind of facilities do you offer? Things like even services you offer. So for example, parking becomes very, very crucial, that how easy it is to enter and exit a mall.
Correct.
Yeah. May sound silly, but even facilities like your washrooms play a role, because if people feel it's not good, they're going to do a shorter trip. Yeah. And then, of course, you need to work with your retailers to ensure that they really have the right merchandise. All of us are doing that, right? When we go to buy something at the store, we are opening either a Myntra or an Amazon and seeing what it costs there. So is the retailer also ensuring uniform pricing across formats? Yeah. So those aspects also become crucial because customers are doing that. So it is very important to create an ambience. What kind of events you have which works for everybody? Concerts for the youngsters, maybe cartoon character visits for the young ones, and parents are going to go where the kids want to go or where the kids will enjoy. So once you address the kids, you address the millennial parents too. And then you kind of make some arrangements for the grandparents who probably do accompany.
Yeah. What kind of has been something that has stayed constant across generations? Has there been anything that at all, or do you see each generation play it out differently?
I think certain things we have as Indians, So for example, Indians continue to remain the most value conscious buyers in the world. We are too used to comparing. We are too used to thinking, can I get it cheaper elsewhere? Can I get it better elsewhere? It's kind of ingrained in our DNA.
Yeah.
So I don't see a lot of that changing at all. The value consciousness will remain. And of course, brands keep emphasizing on it. So it's almost like they feed in, and people, even if they want to wear out that trait, are unable to wear it out.
True that. I agree. As much as we may want to believe that we are looking at the West, which we are, but I think some of the traits that makes us who we are will remain as the trait that we would want to talk about. Now, amidst all of this, I also heard you speak about roles that evolved and where you started when you started your career to where you are today. Um, the role of a CMO, is also the same, and I think it's evolved from maybe the 2000s, the 90s to 2000s to 2010s to what it is today. So, for anyone who is aspiring to be a CMO or doing fairly well as a CMO as well, what do you think is the most future fit CMO definition? What should they be doing differently?
Um, I think as customers have evolved, marketing has to evolve. I have gone from a time when I started my advertising career, Doordarshan was the only TV channel. We
Yeah.
were very, very happy when Doordarshan itself launched a 3 or 4 hour DD Metro service. And then suddenly, a couple of years later, we had ZTV launch, and we were like, oh my God, so much choice. And today we are 500 OTT channels, a lot of options on your own mobile or laptop,
Right.
YouTube, etc. And still sometimes we are struggling to figure what to watch or what to listen to. So the choice has grown manifold, and the way to reach the customer has grown manifold. And most of these methods are digital. So it goes without saying that a digital or a tech bent of mind is essential. Yeah. In fact, in the early 2010s, as you were saying, when Facebook, Instagram started coming into our lives, and people started spending on digital ads, there was this debate of should you hire CMOs or should your CTO take that role too, because it was a technology solution, right? Today, a lot of companies want to have a position called Chief Digital Officer. So is it marketing or is digital? I see a lot of big retail brands have a brand team and a marketing team. So people who are working on how the brand will be versus people who are actually focusing on the click-throughs or walk-ins, kind of a thing. So definitely this role has changed the most, and definitely it continues to remain dynamic. I mean, maybe next from digital could be the chief AI officer, because AI is coming in and you're going to use that. But then AI is also coming in all segments of the business, not just marketing.
Yeah, across functions. Yeah,
so maybe that may not happen, but the specialization expectation from AI may be a lot higher than it is from a marketer than anybody else, and maybe data analysts, etc. too.
Very interesting. And I think that's also to do with the fact that there is a lot that we don't know about AI. And I think it's going to continue to challenge the way we think, continue to surprise us, perhaps stun us in the way things are going to unfold in the next few years. And it is for all of us to remain informed, watchful, and adaptable at the same speed as which we need to. You've been around brands and scaled and stumbled and reinvented. What is the one big myth that you think people still believe about building a successful brand?
Everyone thinks that the customer is them. Yeah. And one is, of course, you build a brand, so you're looking at it very passionately. You know it 360 degrees. You know it top to bottom, and they go into customer search or discuss with a customer, and a customer has a very different approach or a different take on the brand. They don't even notice half the design elements or communication you put in. And that's the reality, because you are living and breathing your brand, your customer isn't. How much ever they may be loyalist to a brand, etc. Right? So I think the biggest mistake still tends to be, and today when you have youngsters doing new D2C brands, and they are specialized in particular domains, so this is exactly what happens.
Very interesting. I mean, we think we know the customer really well, and perhaps are missing the larger picture. Great one, Jermina. You've also reinvented more than once, and often in ways people didn't see it from the outside. What is one internal shift that changed the way you show up today?
I think the shift has basically been more of saying, how do you really keep your ear to the ground?
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's a shift, it's something that's been there. But earlier you could afford to say, थोड़ा बाद में देख लेंगे. Yeah.
Hmm.
आज बाद में देखने को चाहोगे, the technology has changed, the customer has changed. So I think
Correct.
having the ear to the ground has become more and more critical, and it's also become very essential.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Perfect.
that is definitely which is changing.
Sure, sure. Uh, Jermina, I know you and I met, we spoke about the work that you do in academy as well. And today, a lot of students who are looking for careers are drawn to marketing and digital marketing. Unfortunately, the way I see is that the curriculums have remained in the past,
Hmm.
as a result of which what they get taught versus what gets practiced on the, real world are perhaps at times two different things. What is your advice that you would have for people who are listening in, who may either be in a role or the journey of being a digital marketeer or aspiring to be a digital marketeer, of how should they plan their first 5 to 10 years of their career?
Okay, I think I would stick to first five, because depending on the first five, your next five will get decided, especially since it's so dynamic today.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the first thing, while you've not asked the question, I'm going to address it, is that colleges need to perhaps include a lot more of hands-on training and a lot more of guest lectures to give
Yes.
the students a real-world experience. Yeah, because they read perfect case studies and they rarely hear failures. So that's
Mm.
equally essential. Uh, and I have always seen that when I've gone for guest lectures, the feedback from students is we want more such lectures. Yeah,
Mm.
because they feel that we are talking something which makes sense and something they relate to, because you're talking of brands they are using, you're talking of products they are using, you're talking of a communication or an influencer impact who they can, actually relate to.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's not historical, it's probably current. Like I, kind of keep ensuring that my deck which I present is updated with latest
Mm.
examples, latest brand names, etc., etc. So that is one. Second, I think uh, there is so much available to read and listen to, and
Mm.
it's not that easy to do that. So they should, and I think a lot of youngsters do that, follow the right people, listen to the right people, go for these meetups and forums that happen, you know so I think that is there. Upskilling has become a necessity for, say, my generation, because we started in a particular format, etc. But I think upskilling is something today for everybody. It's not just for people who've been for longer in their careers. Digital scene is exploding, media scene is exploding, tools are exploding. You may learn something in college and 6 months later, that service is not available, or that tool is gone redundant because, let's say, some AI feature has come which does it better. So you really need to kind of, be in touch with what's this. It's not easy, definitely not easy, but at least ensure that you are interacting digitally with people who are probably doing more of this for a living.
Very well said. And I think, I also have a good role to play in academia. And one of the things that I do really appreciate of institutions who take this initiative to bridge the gap between industry and academia by bringing in professionals and experts like you is commendable, and I think they should continue to do that. But there are a lot of people who don't do that. So for such academic institutions, what would be a reality check in terms of what is happening in the curriculum versus what is happening on the field? What should they do to do differently to be able to bridge the gap?
I'll give you the example of a college which I recently kind of interacted with, as well as a course I heard of. And while those are specifically for startup and startup entrepreneurs, I don't see why that cannot go to real world college of any kind. One is the Mesa School of Business in Bangalore. It's basically started up with view to giving an MBA for those who want to be entrepreneurs or start a B2C business. And hence their curriculum has a lot of industry interaction. They also have a lot of students working in groups, presenting brand ideas, coming out with campaigns, and that's actually done with budgets. Then they are given money by real world brands saying, okay, I'm giving you, let's say, 1 lakh rupees, and now you run a campaign for us on this product, kind of a thing. So they actually can see how a Instagram or a Google ad works, or how to really do a mix of both. So you can't get more real than that at a college level.
Sure.
Right. And I think a lot of the student reading is expected that they study and read and, understand it versus classroom. So the ratio of non-classroom is fairly good over there. The other was, I think ISB has similarly started, I can't remember whether it's a 6-month or a 1-year course, again for entrepreneurs. And all of them end up having seed funds saying, so, if somebody idea is good, then we will fund and incubate these businesses. And this course is going to be taught by, again, a mix of academia and real world VCs and D2C founders and D2C brand builders, etc. So my question is, why should it only be for entrepreneurial courses? Why can't it be for MBA? Why can't it be for careers too? Why can't it be for engineers too? Why can't it be for design people? Why can't it be for architects? I don't know, even finance. I don't see any reason why this higher industry interaction or, can actually come in and become a bigger reality than just classroom studies.
Very well said. Very well said. A significant portion of the audience that watches this podcast are people from mid-careers. And through my coaching conversations and, the podcast journey in itself, one thing that has emerged very loud and clear is the fact that a big part of reinvention of an individual is the personal brand itself as well. Could you walk the audience rather, through your thoughts on, one, the importance of personal brand? What does a person lose if the person doesn't have it? And two, what are some, maybe 1, 2, or 3 baby steps that one can take to build one?
I think today what has happened is individuals can also be brands. I think social media channels. So for example, influencers were the first set of personal brands. Now you also have it happening on LinkedIn. So you become a specialist, you're talking of particular domains, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, or even LinkedIn. And what it has made is this availability of technology, the ease to reach out to the world has made it very democratic, where you don't have to kind of spend a lot of money or do it, right? And there are benefits of it. In the D2C world, we have seen that a lot of founders started being their own brand ambassadors because they didn't have money for models or didn't have money for, influencers. So, there are a lot of such D2C brand builders. Like there are these 2 girls, Anshika and Nikita, both have built curly hair product brands, and both have said that it was a personal struggle. And when they show their pictures of their childhood, their college days, and how they struggled and now they are doing it, it gets very real, because somebody like me who also struggles with curly hair relates to them, so it becomes very easy. There are VCs who are talking about it because they also want to attract the right kind of talent or the right kind of brands. There are a lot of tech evangelists. Twitter specifically has a lot more of them. So it's very important to build a personal brand. Having said that, it's not like if you don't have a personal brand, you don't have a career. On the other side, I see my friends who are in 100% corporate career, and whether it's due to lack of time or whether it's due to rules within the organization of how much can be communicated and cannot be communicated, don't have the personal brands. But that doesn't mean people don't know who they are. That doesn't mean headhunters don't call them. That doesn't mean people don't reach out to them. But yes, having a personal brand is a lot better than not having one. And of course, a personal brand has to be handled very, very carefully. It's high risk too, no doubt. you could say something that annoys people and you have a lot of flack for it. And how you handle that flack becomes very crucial,
Yeah.
right? So that becomes very crucial. Hence, even choosing your media. So while I'm active on LinkedIn, I could never do Twitter.
Mm.
I can never do Twitter. I'm very clear about that. Yeah. Whether it's my own personality, which doesn't match with the tone of voice of X or whatever it is, or it's a simple bandwidth issue. Yeah. Or there are a lot of personal things I love, and I would love to, perhaps if I talked about it on Instagram, I could be a micro influencer there, but then I have to choose my time availability, and I continue to just do that on LinkedIn. So there are many such factors. So if you want to build a personal brand, spend some time understanding, being very clear what you want to stand for. Yeah. Be also very clear what you don't want to stand for. I think the don'ts are as important as the do's. Prioritize the channels. You can't be everywhere and every time if you especially have a career, or you're deciding 1 year I will only focus on getting those followers and building a name, and then I will reap it. That's an equally good plan too. And we've seen many successes with that too, right? So you have to do that. So there are ways and means of doing it. But yes, having a personal brand is becoming very important in an individual's identity for sure, especially if you're a solopreneur, especially if you're a small business owner, you know. And youngsters today are also not falling for, you know, the influencers or the movie stars who are saying buy something, because one Monday they are saying use this shampoo, next Monday they are saying use another shampoo, right? So they are also looking for authenticity. So when a brand owner is going to say it and also going to say that this was my pain point and I solved it, and people are thinking, hey, thanks for solving my pain point.
Very true, very true. Yeah, that also kind of tells you that it is very important to bring in the authenticity and, you know, perhaps sometimes even vulnerability to be able to be seen as an authentic brand for that matter. Well, I'll quickly shift to rapid fire, which is an integral element of the podcast. So it's going to be just a short one. One retail trend you're secretly tired of?
Everybody is saying exclusive. Nobody is doing exclusive stuff, but everybody claims to be doing exclusive stuff.
The 1% club, or the so-called lounges and all of that, right? Completely agree. A brand that feels like it gets it right now. They get it right.
I've always been a big fan of that brand, and I think that brand really knows its customer, really knows its industry, and sets the benchmarks in the industry.
Wonderful. Physical store, pop-up, or D2C, which is going to be your gut pick today?
It has to be the pop-up, because that's the best way to test and see if you want to grow your idea further.
Reinvention in one word.
Upskilling. Yeah, I think that's the only way today you can be relevant.
Sure. And what keeps you future ready? Learning, listening, or letting go?
I think it has to be a mix of all three, because you have to unlearn something to learn something new. And today learning can be reading or listening. So both are options. So I think it has to be a mix of both. And I think the way technology is evolving, unlearning is getting equally crucial.
Very true, very true. And I mean, one cannot say that he or she is an expert for long. It's like me telling I'm an expert in Fox Pro, which I don't even know if people remember.
You're going to get a lot of what's Fox Pro from the millennials and Gen Zs.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I've actually forgotten what it was, though I can recognize the
name. That's where my computer's journey started, so I remember it really well. But thank you, Jermina, for joining and sharing such an incredible perspective about a lot of things around how things are evolving around us, and the way we live, the way we shop, the way we experience brands. Any parting thoughts that you would want to leave the audience with?
First of all, thanks, Gopal, for having me. I think I've done a lot of podcasts, but I've never really shared my career journey and the ups and downs of it. So thanks for giving me a platform to even share that. And I think at the cost of sounding like a broken record, I'm going to say that, upskilling and relearning is the way to continue being relevant, is the way to continue, uh, being in a career, staying in a career, and making a difference in your career. So that continues to be my one thought for the audience listening in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate. And to all of you who would listen to this, I think it's extremely interesting times that we're going through as humanity. And it was fantastic speaking to Jermina about, the insights that she shared, but also with the honesty with which she shared about whether it is a good thing to be completely digital or not. And I think it's right that I think what we have realized and what we are saying is that it's going to be important balance and integration of being human and tech both. So, it's all about relevance. It's all about reinvention. It's all about the quiet strength that it takes to keep evolving when no one is watching. What Jermina reminded us was behind every brand, there is a beating heart. And behind every leader who seems composed, there is usually a story of letting go, slowing down, and finding their way back to where it matters, exactly how Jermina did in her career. To everyone tuning in, this episode wasn't just about commerce. It was about connection, about remembering that the future of work, leadership, or retail won't be built on speed alone. It will be built on alignment. It will be built on trust. It will be built on relevance and attention as well. Am I still showing up the way that is true to who I am becoming is going to be the question that I'm going to leave all of you with, because relevance is one word that kept coming back again and again throughout the conversation. So if this conversation stirred something within you, please do sit with it and share it. Share it with people who you think are going through similar shifts in their lives. The world may reward the loudest, but that's only for going to be a time being phenomenon. The world will still reward people who belong to move with intention. More stories to come, more voices, more shifts, more futures waiting to be imagined. Until then, stay grounded, stay awake, stay with us. Career Shift's journey to the future continues to chuck forward. Thank you.
Thank you.